Welcome back to Franchise Hockey Manager 12 with the Boston Bruins rebuild. When you were last with us, we ended up doing a deep dive on where we project Boston Bruins to fare this season and against the competition that we end up having, and a little bit of the cap obligations and kind of the prospects and where they end up standing against the league. This episode, we're going to do a little bit more of the features that end up having this season. We'll look at the training, we'll look at everything that has to do with that. It's a new feature that they end up having this season. We might end up doing F1 just more so for help, just to kind of see everything that ends up showing. And it's going to be a bit more informative. And then we'll end up going with our opening day roster and see the kind of changes that we end up doing this season. So the training screen allows you to guide players on the development progress. Like they end up saying, it's easier to do at the beginning of the season, before training camp, before anything else, so that they can actually build these areas. And it gets broken down into skill groups: shooting accuracy, shooting range, getting open, playmaking, passing, offensive read, and team player, defensive tactics, defensive read, positioning, and shot blocking. So possibly more so for defenders than anything. Checking is also seems a bit more for defending as well, but hitting, checking, and stick checking. Puck control, puck handling, balance face-off. So obviously for centers, you're going to want that. Skating, acceleration, agility, and speed. I feel as though I'm going to focus a lot just getting my players to be very fast. And I think I'm going to focus on that. Physical, aggression, fighting, and bravery. And then goaltending tactics is positioning, rebound, recovery. And then a goaltending technique is blocker, gloves, and low shots. I do like that, especially the fact that you can kind of groom your players a little bit more to where you want them to progress. And at least it gives you a fighting chance as to kind of controlling a little bit where the skills end up being. Skill category training, mental, so aggression, bravery, determination, team player, leadership, temperament, and professionalism. Physical is acceleration, agility, balance, speed, stamina, strength, and fighting. And then screening, getting open, passing, puck handling, shooting accuracy, shooting range, and offensive read is more offensive. And then defensive is checking, faceoffs, hitting, positioning, shot blocking, stick checking, and defensive read. Obviously, we're going to try and focus more on the defensive and more aggression side. So like the physicals and the skating, I think are going to be the things that I'm going to look at the most to see if I can end up making players a little bit faster. I don't know how it's necessarily going to translate, so we're going to kind of have to do it season by season, I guess. But obviously, if a player is already super fast, we're going to end up focusing more on shooting and see if we can actually make a difference here and see what the algorithm ends up working. But the option selection, players can have a training program set at any date between July 7th, which we're a little bit past that, and the last day of the preseason. But setting them later will be less effective and potentially dangerous because there will be less time for them to work. So obviously the first season seems like it's a little bit of a wash, but we're not too far off on it, I guess. But we're going to try and do what we can this season. But obviously next season is going to be when it's a little bit more important. Progress begins at 0 and counts up to 100. Playing in any game increases that, so I like that. The fact that that when you end up playing with the player in the preseason and possibly during regular games as well, it should end up improving as well. But progress the amount between 1 and 6, exact amount, depending on the program, the player's coachability, and the player's quality of coaching. So obviously we want good coaches, and we want them to play on top lines for obviously the players that we want to boost up a little bit. Obviously we're going to focus more on the players that we can boost from 3 onwards. Anything lower than that I wouldn't really spend my time on or prioritize over other players. Progress increases by 1 to 4 each day of preseason, depending on the program and the quality of coaching. Obviously quality coaching is a considerable factor there. Progress increased by a very small amount each calendar day before preseason begins. If 100 is reached before the preseason ends, the player immediately gets an improvement at the program ends, which reverts to the player to Class D training and makes them eligible to begin another AC training if desired. If progress is still not 100% when preseason ends, the player may still improve, the exact chance being equal to the current progress out of 100. However, if he fails to improve, there's a small chance the failed training may cause one of the attributes targeted by the training to decline. So it's risky to start a player on a difficult program at the late preseason. So yeah, earlier the better, but that just seems pretty logical for the most part. Training effects, improvement can add +1 rating to the target group. So obviously focus more on younger players, and over the course of training them, like probably when they start at 18 or even up to 20, kind of makes more sense to be able to build them up, right? Targeted training, this resembles the old training screen, which with the one checkbox replaced by the drop down, which I end up kind of looking at it briefly, and it seems kind of cool. I do like that. Hopefully we can actually see how it ends up progressing. But we'll kind of start off as is. Like I said, we'll focus more on potential. So let's see if we can. So Minton, let's look at what he's at. I don't really know if he's necessarily going to improve, but we'll end up taking a shot, and then we'll kind of look at it towards the season and see what ends up happening with him, or at least the preseason. I don't necessarily think it's going to end up changing anything, but we'll end up going, we'll go with speed here. So it is what it is. Let's see if there's anything else that I can do. Oh, I guess you can pick each one. Oh no, I guess not. So general, all right. And then you can do offensive. So let's say shooting accuracy. I'm hoping that you don't have to just do it with one. And then he is a center, so let's say face-offs. Face-offs at 20. Interesting. And then obviously you don't need anything else for that. But we'll end up taking a look at other players, though. He's probably the only one that's like kind of young. Or not too old, I guess, but kind of young, but not necessarily going to play with you guys. McAvoy, I don't think we really want to change him too much. I mean, his hitting, shot blocking, let's see if we can do that. So we'll go back. Let's see, shot blocking. If we can kind of increase that a little bit, that would be great. Lindholm, I don't know if it really does it with older players, though. That's the thing that I don't quite know. Pasternak, I don't really want to touch at all. I mean, I guess puck handling, offensive read could be there. It's more of a dangler anyway, so puck handling for sure. Like I said, I could be doing this completely wrong, but we're going to end up doing trial and error for it for sure. Just get that up to 20. Hopefully it shouldn't be too difficult. Lindholm's good at faceoffs. Let's add that more. So we'll see what we can do here. Maybe I did too much for Minton. I'm not 100% sure. Is it defensive as faceoffs? Weird. And then we'll end up doing. Let's do offensive read for him as well. We'll only end up doing 2 for him. Zacha's still kind of young. Yeah, let's do shooting accuracy. It says he's more of a grinder, or maybe speed, counterattacking. Yeah, we'll focus more on speed and acceleration, or acceleration for him. And we'll kind of leave it at that. We won't really finagle too much this season. We'll focus more on the off season and see what we can actually do for that. But we'll end up jumping to the regular season soon and see what we can end up doing. For that. So we'll do Zacha for that, and then I guess physical. We already did physical, so I guess for that we'll just do a general amount, but we'll kind of finish this off off camera, but we'll end up jumping to see what this team's going to look like at the start of the season. So you now made it to the beginning of the season, and in the top 3 teams, we're nowhere to be found because obviously there's a lot that we end up having to do. We managed to get a lot done before this, and I will go into detail into that in a little while. But first, we'll look at the top 3 teams. Dallas is one of them, and Florida as well with Vegas Golden Knights. Florida looking to win for a 3rd straight year. Edmonton looking to at least get to the finals for another 3rd straight year. And scoring race looks like it's going to be decided by either Edmonton or Nathan MacKinnon. So No one else really has a hope there. Quinn Hughes, Darlene, and McCarr are the top three blue liners. And then for goalies, it's Hellebuyck, Shesterkin, and Vasilevsky. In real life, it doesn't look like Vasilevsky's going to be one of the top goaltenders, considering how bad Tampa has started off the season. So earlier in this episode, I ended up showing you the off-season training, and as you can see, I kind of figured it out more so off screen, but it does look like some of it did have some good progression. We end up having Lindbaum with low shots and mental toughness, and a couple players that we didn't really care about. I guess Tufte ended up getting fighting, but Jordan Harris got getting open and screening. I don't think we end up doing screening as one of those things. Bancroft went up as well. Sweezy, we definitely did speed for that as well. Shooting accuracy for these players as well, but it doesn't look like too much ended up happening for that. But we'll look at some of the transactions that we end up doing. And first off, we'll end up going with the trades, or I guess the signings. We'll go signings. So you guys end up seeing Plord is one of the signings that we end up making. He's going to most likely stay in the AHL anyways, but it's more so for the potential. Even if we can get something for him at some point within his rookie contract within the first 3 years, hopefully we can get even a late pick for that. And we're just going to kind of figure out everything in terms of developing with that guy. So I'll probably put him in a training regimen and see what we can end up doing with that guy. But we're not really expecting too much for it. We'll do waiver picks next. So we did end up getting Zach Jones, Kaliev, Emil Andre, and Jonathan Asperet end up going to the Penguins, but I don't think he's that good, to be honest. 1.5 stay-at-home defenseman. The only thing that really looks like it shined was the balance there, and the fact that he was lefty and apparently left wing as well. We were really busy when it came to trades. We went absolutely nuts. First off, we started off by just kind of shopping everything. We got rid of Zadorov and his ridiculous contract for a 5th-round pick to Buffalo. So, I mean, not the greatest, not the worst. And then, again, 2 other 5th-round picks there as well for players that probably weren't going to play for us anyways. I know if we end up just doing the trading function, we would have been able to get something better for that. And then even Blumel says that he's going to end up starting this year, but I mean, he didn't really end up playing that much for Dallas anyways last year, which doesn't look too bad. I mean, doesn't look too great either, but 2-star, he's never going to end up seeing game time with us anyways. So 5th-round pick is what we end up getting, and then we went absolutely nuts. We went for Roger McQueen. We didn't really give too much up for him. We ended up giving up, I don't even know how to say his name, Kuznutinov, or Dinov, and then Isamont, which was like an add-on that they wanted. So this is the player that they ended up wanting, and then we gave up the rights to Gallagher and Henriksen for McQueen. I mean, he might not necessarily do anything this year, but he is a 3.5-star potential. Up and down winger is around 17 there. He did do pretty good for the WHL 2 years ago, it looks like. That's weird. He's an NCAA now from WHL. So at 19, he's with Providence Friars. So hopefully he can develop into that 4-star instead of that 3-star potential. But we're not necessarily going to start him this year. He's still 2 stars, but we'll get into the depth after. Muse, we end up getting, didn't really give up too much for him. It shows that he's 3.5 stars, and he's with the NCAA this year. So we'll have to wait and see. We gave up VL Minton, who I was hoping to be able to progress with the training, but that's one of the players that they end up wanting to get the job done. So we gave up Minton, Jelvik, and one of the 5th-round picks that we ended up recently acquiring. So not too bad. We traded Kuyarju, Brunette, and Lysell for Hudson. Not too bad. He's going to be with the Terriers this year, but he ended up getting 48 points last season, so he could very well be a lot better than than necessarily what his stats are showing. He's showing he's only 1.5, 3.5-star potential. I think he's a 2nd-round pick, so that's why we were able to get him. And then we end up getting Lindbaum from Golden Knights. He's a goaltender. We'll end up looking at that after. Janicek and Middlestad we end up giving up with Gasso and Pelosi with the 5th-round pick. Another one that, well, not that we acquired, but one of them that we had for a couple seasons for now, but I don't think we're going to have to really worry about a fifth round pick in 2028. We end up getting Denarier for Svennak and Letourneur and Kuntar, and a fifth round pick, probably one of the ones that we just acquired. But we'll look at Lindbaum first. I mean, just the eye test looks pretty good. I mean, 6'1", looks like he should be a decent backup. But like I said, it's all about just developing them and seeing where they can go with that. But we end up getting Denarier there, who, I mean, he looks really good. He was a fourth. Oh, he's a first round pick there. Hold on. What was he actually? I don't see it. Maybe I'm blind. It's not showing what he was drafted as. Oh no, Mammoth. Sorry, Utah Mammoth. I'm just blind. For a fourth round pick or fourth overall pick. So we end up giving up Svedbak, Letourneau, and Kuntar in a fifth round pick. So not too bad. We got Musty and then Afanasayev for Korali, Beecher, Zellers, Yelamandov, and second round pick there. I just really wanted him. I think we just need a left wing. He's not necessarily going to play for us this year, but we're hoping that he develops closer to the 4-star. But I mean, his stats don't necessarily look like he's going to be too great. I mean, we can kind of change that and fine-tune that as much as possible. But he is only a 2-star currently. We'll have to see where he ends up kind of lining up with that. But now we end up looking at our depth chart, and it looks a lot healthier than what it did a few moments ago. We got McQueen, Muse, Musty, Hudson as well, and then Lindbaum and Denarier. So basically from 2 to 7 are just recent acquisitions that we end up getting. So not too bad there. And then we end up still having our 2 first-rounders, second, a third, fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and a seventh. So we didn't really have to give up too much for that. Doesn't look like Plord's going to start this year. Poitras, for whatever reason, lower than Hagens, but yeah, kind of makes you wish that you end up signing him. But everyone ended up wanting him as part of the package. Any player that we tried to trade for, he was in that talks. So hopefully what ends up happening is these players, these 4, end up kind of moving up into the top 4. One of these, unfortunately, is going to probably have to go to a wing or something. Probably, I'm going to guess it's McQueen. Yeah, face-offs aren't that great. So we'll probably end up having to move that. But so far, Kaliev, one of the players that we ended up getting in the waivers, is now our second line, which isn't too bad for that. And then I think Bancroft we ended up getting as well. Andre, it's probably going to be fourth line, but we'll end up doing the see what the AI ends up creating for us. We'll obviously change it the closer we end up getting to it, but it's just more so we can kind of see where it's putting everyone. I'd rather Musty at the top there with Lindholm and Pasternak. Does look like that should be a pretty good line. And then Arvidsson, Zacha, and Kaliev. I mean, in real life, that shouldn't be too bad. And then you have our bottom 2 that aren't going to be necessarily that great. We're going to put Poitras up there as well. And then Afanasayev. Shannon, he's probably going to be a casualty at some point, I think. But Lindholm, McAvoy, Jones, and Sutterson, I think obviously we're going to have to swap Lorley at some point. He is at 100, but for whatever reason, that looks like our opening night roster. We'll end up hitting continue again, just to kind of see what ends up happening. That Hurdle ends up getting traded for nothing. That is a very bad trade. 5th round and a 6th round pick for that guy, for Hurdle. And then Hronik for a 3rd rounder. See, that makes more sense. 3rd rounder, 3-star player for a 3rd rounder. I don't hate it as much, but the Hurdle for Carolina, that's absolutely ridiculous, especially since they're not even eating his contract. That is absolutely wild. I was going to say pun intended, but I think it's more so Carolina. But we'll end up rejigging it just for the first game at Washington. We'll see truly for the first 2 games how bad this team actually is. We won't go too much in depth. We'll do that in next episode. But we'll just end up seeing how well we end up doing for that. So let's do AI setup organization. Doesn't look like they want Lorley to play, which seems odd. I would rather him play than, well, both of these actually. So we'll take off Andre for now and kind of see where they end up lining him up. So I'm still going to put Musty on there. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to have two grinders on the second line. And a grinder on each line, it looks like. Lorley's still on the second line, which I think is probably where he's going to play for this whole season. And then Swayman and Korpisalo. So 7-2 win. I mean, that is absolutely shocking. I wasn't expecting that. Afanasayev scores the first goal of the season. Zacha and Jones and Janet end up getting on the score sheet as well. Shorthanded by Geeky, Pasternak, and Poitras gets his first of the season. We're going to face off against Chicago. And already our first injury of the season. We'll end up having to adjust that. But it does look like it's just a bump and scrape. I'm really hoping that it's not going to be terrible this season. We were projected to probably be one of the bottom teams, but surprisingly we managed to end up winning. Okay, now it's all the records. Okay. So we won't really worry about that. I'll end up looking at it more so when I have time with the new emails that I end up having and see if it's going to be the same as the other times. Looks like they're still going to start Geeky, though. And then Korpisalo is going to end up playing here. And Geeky's now on the bottom line. Hopefully going to recover, but 5-1 loss, so that seems more in line with what we're expecting. And Fanasayev still scoring, though, and Musty getting his second point of the season. So not too bad, I would say. But we're not going to really go too much into detail. We'll kind of just see how things end up lying later on in the next episode. But we'll look at whether or not we end up trading some of these players. Like I said, there's still a decent amount of players that we might want to move on from that are a little bit older, I'd say. So Brown, Arvidsson might want to find a home. And then even Lindholm, if we can end up getting something for him, or even Korpisalo, I'll gladly trade him away halfway through the season. But basically the 30 mark is probably where we're going to start seeing what we can do. Pasternak, we're obviously going to keep because he's a top guy. And you wouldn't do that unless you're going to get something pretty significant for it. But even someone like Zacha, we could part ways with just because we want to go a little bit younger. Not necessarily going to get rid of him unless I can get a decent return for him. Janet as well, I think we're going to end up having to get rid of him. He's only a 2-star. And obviously we want to bring up some space for some youngsters over the next little while. So we'll leave it as is. Managed to still get around 80 million in salary, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But we'll leave it at that. We'll come back for our next episode, and hopefully you guys like what you see. Leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you for watching. Until next time.